record in the 21 CF 715 People versus Bradley Yohn. All parties and counsel previously mentioned the record are still present. Did you get the reports printed out you needed in exhibits?
Your Honor, I did not. I only was able to get a few of them printed out, and I still need to set up a monitor to display these exhibits too. I talked about this days ago. I'm going to need a little bit of time to be prepared. I'd hope to go ahead and get this over with, but I mean, I have to be able to do certain things in order to. Mr. Nelson was only able to obtain about approximately 14, 15 copies.
How much more time do you perceive that you're going to need, Mr. Yohn?
Half an hour or 40 minutes. I apologize, Your Honor. There's not much I can do about it.
And there's plenty that should have been done before this time, Mr. Yohn. The time for trial prep is before trial, but I will recess for 30 minutes. You get done and ready to present your case, because we're going to do that in 30 minutes, sir. We'll be in recess till 1:30.
Ladies and gentlemen, please rise.
All right, for the record, in 21 CF 715, Mr. Jones and Mrs. Keck appearing for the people, Mr. Yohn appearing pro se with standby counsel, Mr. Nelson. We are now at 1:37 or so in the afternoon, and Mr. Yohn, are you now prepared to begin with your defense?
Your Honor, I'm about as prepared as going to be.
Okay, and are you going to be calling a witness?
Officer Ruth Bowden.
Okay. All right, so let's have the jurors brought back in, please. Thank you. You're back on the record, and the jurors are now all present in the jury box. And Mr. Yohn, do you care to present any evidence?
Officer Ruth Bowden, Your Honor.
All right, if we could have Officer Ruth Bowden brought to the courtroom. You could come forward, ma'am, to the Deputy Circuit Clerk and raise your right hand. She'll swear you in.
You do solemnly swear that the testimony you may give in the cause now pending before this court shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God. I do.
Have a seat over here to my right, the witness stand. There you go. All right, Mr. Yohn, when you're ready with your questions.
You're Officer Ruth Bowden, correct?
Yes.
Would you state your name and credentials for the record, please?
It's Ruth Bowden. I'm a deputy with Adams County Sheriff's Department.
And how long have you been with Adams County Sheriff's Department?
Approximately 19 and a half years.
And you were employed as a street deputy at this current moment.
Correct.
And on November 9th of 2021, you were doing the same occupation, or were you in a different?
Same. Patrol deputy.
You're obviously familiar with the matters we're here on today, November 9th of 2021. And you were to be the first deputy on scene to an alleged home invasion and sexual assault, correct?
There were two of us deputies that arrived approximately the same time, Sergeant Joe Lohmeyer and I.
Do you remember who arrived first?
No, it would have been within a minute or two of the same.
Could you also relate to us the other officers that come in behind you?
I couldn't. There was a lot. I don't know exactly who all was there. It'd be on our dispatch ticket.
Yes, I understood. Summers sound familiar. Deputy Miller.
I believe they were there at some point. I don't know exactly when.
You're not for sure. Sergeant McMahon, maybe.
I believe he was there.
Upon arriving to the scene, what did you proceed to do once you arrived there?
Sergeant Lohmeyer and I talked to the initial caller, Timothy Schmidt.
And where did you talk to him at?
I believe we initially talked to him, I think it was outside towards the garage area or the driveway maybe.
Upon speaking to him, what did he relay to you?
Just pretty much what he had relayed to the dispatch center, that there was some sort of incident that happened involving his wife, where she was hijacked in her vehicle, sexually assaulted, and some things were stolen from their house, and a vehicle was also stolen.
And could you relate to those of us here today your further proceedings after that, what you did upon talking to Mr. Schmidt?
I don't understand the...
After you talked to husband, Mr. Schmidt, what did you proceed to do after that time?
I mean,
Did you enter the home?
Yes, we eventually did enter the home.
And eventually, could you, to the best of your recollection, do you remember approximately how long after you arrived, how long after you talked to Mr. Schmidt that you entered the home?
I don't, to be honest.
Not even an estimate.
I'm not real sure.
It could have been a half an hour.
I don't believe it'd be that long.
And when you entered the home, what did you observe when you entered the home?
I know when we walked through the garage, the open garage, and then there was a walk-through door to enter the house. There was damage to the door, and there was shoe print on the door. Obviously, it appeared if it was a kicked in. As we entered the home, we entered into, I believe it was the kitchen area, and there was a elderly female sitting on the ground inside. There's like an open concept floor plan inside kind of the kitchen into the living room area.
And in reference to the elderly female sitting inside, where was she sitting?
I believe, so it was an open concept, so I believe it was kind of where the kitchen and the dining room meet. Kind of, I think they had different floor surfaces, if I remember correctly, so into the kind of living room area.
Do you remember any object or piece of furniture she was sitting by?
I believe she was pretty near a chair, and then there were some sofas in there too, if I recall.
Okay. And in your report, I have your report here. In your report, you wrote that CL was on the floor and had to have help getting up from that floor.
At one point she did, yes.
And specifically, you stated that she, and I quote, appeared upset and later needed help getting up. Would that be a correct assumption that she later needed help getting up?
I don't think she needed help right away. I think, eventually at some point.
But deputies did help her up.
Yeah, I don't recall who did, but somebody did, yes.
Do you recall where they helped her up to?
I don't.
And I want to ask about the clothing she was wearing when you entered the home. To the best of your recollection, do you remember what clothing she was wearing?
I don't.
Was she naked potentially, or?
No. She would have had clothing on. I just don't remember the exact garments she had on.
And you did not help her up to the couch?
No.
That couch, obviously you entered the scene and what steps did you take after entering the scene and upon seeing her on the floor?
I don't understand what.
When you entered the scene,
What?
what steps did you further take?
In terms of.
Securing the scene, speaking to anyone?
Okay. I know we entered, and I know Sergeant Lohmeyer had spoken to Christina. She was visibly upset, crying, and she had just kind of given us a kind of fragmented statements on what had happened initially.
And do you recall deputies having to assist CL off the floor due to any certain reason?
I don't know. I don't know why.
You stated you arrived within minutes of Deputy Lohmeyer. On the call for service sheet, I believe it states 6:27. I'd like to ask you, in your profession, what is an administrator?
In terms, usually it's one of the more
An
head
officer, in terms of
administrator and officer.
Yes, so like in your ranks, in your level, is there such a thing called an administrator?
Well, administrator usually is a higher level. Like in ours would be like the sheriff, chief deputies, sergeants.
And were there any administrators local?
If we're referring to the same thing, like a Sergeant Lohmeyer would have been the patrol, administrator, if you will.
And there were no other administrators there throughout this time. You obviously stayed around the scene till I believe it was approximately 9 p.m., a little bit after.
Okay.
Were there any other administrators there during this time?
If you're speaking of higher ranking people, yes, I believe I did see the sheriff there at one point, Sheriff Wagner. And I know Sergeant McMahon was there, Sergeant Lohmeyer. And I don't remember if anybody else of the higher ranking were there that I recall.
Outside of the police and law enforcement, were there any other people present?
At points, yes.
And do you remember what this was?
I know when we initially got there, from what I recall, it was Sergeant Lohmeyer and I, and then Timothy Schmidt, who resides there, and also his wife. And I know at some point, I believe it was a few of her daughters arrived. I don't know the times, but they were there at some point.
Pretty close to.
I don't think it was really very long, but
You say you observed an elderly woman on the floor and she was frantic or giving frantic responses. Obviously, the floor is not a comfortable position. Is there a reason that y'all didn't immediately help her up or get her to a safer and more comfortable position?
I don't know. Don't recall.
And you relayed in your report here that she was helped up to a couch. Can you shed some light on that?
If I had it in there, that must have been what happened, but I don't really recall what she was up to.
And just based on your recollection and the floor plan, knowing the floor plan, about how far do you think that couch was from that position she was seated on the floor?
If I had to guess in feet, maybe 6 to 8 feet, roughly, give or take.
And you spoke to Timothy Schmidt, and you probably heard some things CL was stating. I want to talk about further procedure you took in this incident. This is a very big incident in the area, and it's commonly known. So I would expect an officer of law to maybe remember a bit of procedure they took, and I'd ask you further to provide any recollection of procedure you took upon and after speaking to CL and Timothy Schmidt.
I know Sergeant Lohmeyer was there, who was my supervisor, so I know he spoke to her more in depth than I did, and I know I did walk. I kind of, did check around the area. I walked around with Timothy at one point.
In the area, you mean the home
The
or
residence.
outside?
The residence.
The residence, okay. And did Officer Lohmeyer leave quickly, or did he hang around the scene himself?
He was there quite a while.
Quite a while. So you proceeded to look around the home, and probably a form of securing it and looking to see what had been ransacked or went through.
I know Timothy had kind of showed me around to, show me things that were kind of askew or out of the ordinary of the way they would have left it.
In reference to askew, the word you used, the words askew and out of the ordinary, not the way that he would have left them. You obviously entered the scene not too long after the 911 phone call. The 911 phone call was alleged to be at 6:09 and you arrived at 6:27. When you walked around the scene, did you see anything out of the ordinary?
I know when we initially got there, there was a garage. Well, initially by the driveway, there's like a patch of grass and there was car tracks through it, which was kind of odd. And there was items on the garage floor, kind of almost in a pile. And then, of course, as we walk through the garage door into the house area, there's a shoe print on the door, which, you know, is kind of odd. And there was damage to the door and door jamb. And as we walk in, of course, there's some things in the kitchen. I think a drawer had been gone through. There was a knife on the floor in the kitchen, and there was also like a spray bottle of cleaner that was on the ground. And the house appeared to be a very, clean house. So that seemed odd to me, in my initial contact.
When you say it appeared to be very clean, it wasn't cluttered or messy? In a sense?
Not in my opinion. It seemed to be a clean house other than the things that looked out of the ordinary to me, just in first contact.
And you come to the conclusion in your report that one of the kitchen cabinets had been gone through, correct?
I believe I had that in there, yes.
And you know how many appeared to be gone through?
I don't.
Was it several, just a singular?
I don't. I don't know if I had it in there, but
I don't believe you did. I just wanted to inquire.
okay. I'm not sure, yeah.
And you also stated there was a knife on the floor and a cleaner, can of cleaner.
Correct.
The word ransack, I'd like to ask you, do you know the word ransack?
I do.
Could you relay that, based on your opinion, what ransack means?
Something, when it's ransacked, if it's an orderly house, it would be things thrown, possibly, out of drawers maybe, or maybe food on the ground, maybe paperwork, mail thrown on the ground, things of that nature.
And ransack is similar to what you stated. Ultimately, it is search thoroughly and to plunder.
Objection, Your Honor, relevance.
The house is stated to be ransacked, Your Honor.
All right, you need to ask the witness questions rather than making statements, though, Mr. Yohn, so I'm going to sustain the objection, and we can move on with questioning your witness.
And husband Schmidt, he pointed out all of these things to you. Do you remember what he pointed out specifically?
I can't remember if he pointed out the kitchen itself. That was visible right when you walked in. I know we did walk through the house at a little bit later time, and he showed me a bedroom, which I remember he said, I believe some drawers were gone through something, and there was if I recall, a liquor bottle that was pushed over and a wallet out of a drawer, and I think there was some jewelry taken, he had informed me. And then we did walk down to the basement. They have a large open basement, and he advised in the middle section of the basement there were lots of drawers that were gone through and pulled out, which wasn't normal. And then also along a different wall, there's a wall safe, and he advised somebody must have moved, I think there was a piece of wood in front of it, and it was moved, and he believes somebody tried to get into it.
And that basement, did that basement appear as a normal living area? One that someone occupied regularly?
That I don't really recall that part.
It wasn't cluttered or potentially used as a storage spot?
I honestly don't remember.
You're obviously familiar with guns, correct, as an officer. Did you see any gun paraphernalia?
I don't remember that.
Mr. Schmidt, as you related in your report, he pointed out that lights had been turned on, cabinets opened in the kitchen, and the safe. Does that seem to be accurate?
I don't believe the safe was opened, from what I recall.
I apologize, you just pointed out the safe, and that's what you referenced in your...
He did show me where the safe was in the basement, but it didn't seem like it was access to him.
And did Mr. Schmidt relate to you any things that he knew was missing?
I believe he said something about some jewelry in one of the bedrooms he took me into. And I know, I want to say that's all he knew for sure was missing at that time. I know, at that time, we wouldn't have been able to go through the whole house or inventory anything specifically, but
And by the time of your concluding of walking through the scene, the time you were done walking through the scene, could you give a brief estimate on how long you think you've been there?
I have no idea.
And while you're doing this assessment of the home, do you recall where Officer Lohmeyer was?
He, I believe, stayed up with Christina upstairs.
And during the concluding of your observation of the house being taken around the house, when you come back up, you obviously come back upstairs, correct?
Yes.
And it was you, Lohmeyer, Timothy, and CL, correct?
Yes, and there might have been more people there by that point. I don't remember when other people came.
And to try to help shed some light, once you arrived on the scene, did you do this assessment promptly? Was it a while after?
I know, obviously, we had talked to him outside for a few minutes and then went inside, and I know Christine had given a few just fragmented statements, and I know Sergeant Lohmeyer stayed up with her, and then Timothy had kind of showed me around. It wasn't really long after we got there that I walked with him, throughout.
CL eventually went to the hospital, correct?
Yes.
And was that while you were there?
Yeah, I think she did go when I was still there.
And do you recall who took her?
I'm not 100%. I thought she went with her husband, but I'm not 100% on that.
Yeah, that is what's in your report. I just wanted
Okay.
to make sure. Do you recall approximately what time she left for the hospital?
No, I don't.
It was maybe a while after you were there?
It had been a while, yes.
And did you say 45 minutes, hour?
I really don't know, because
Just an estimate.
I don't know.
And when she left for the hospital, there was obviously others there, correct?
Correct.
Do you recall who may have been there then?
There was a lot of people there. I couldn't tell you every person, no. If, with our dispatch tickets, though, any officers would have been, that would be on the dispatch ticket.
I find it hard that you don't remember
Objection, Your Honor.
who was
Argument.
there. There was,
Sustained.
and do you recall anybody in the home as far as the rest of the people who were there?
Mm-hmm. At different times, yes.
Different times, such as maybe after you did your assessment of the scene?
Yes.
And in particular, was there a daughter there that went through the home looking for things for the declarant or victim CL?
I know there were, I believe at least two of the daughters showed up.
And what were they doing while you were there?
I mean, they were in the house. I didn't, keep track of them completely.
And it's a pretty big house, correct?
Correct.
And they were not in your sight at all times?
No, they wouldn't have been.
And you remained on the scene until CSI Field arrived, true?
I was there, yes.
And could you tell me how you proceeded after that?
With,
in reference to this whole night? What did you proceed to do after that time?
I know Sergeant Lohmeyer contacted her when she got there. She proceeded to take evidence and do what she needed to do with her protocols.
And you just hung around and secured the scene, or?
I stayed there, yes.
Approximately how long did you stay there? I mean,
I have no idea.
you don't?
It'd be on the dispatch ticket, any information of my whereabouts.
You would give me one moment. And you are at S11, correct?
Correct.
Do you recall if it was later in the night that you left? Was it early in the AM of the next day?
I know I was there for quite a while, and then I was instructed at one point to go to Blessing Hospital for, I believe, the crime scene tech for the state. I believe it was Brandy Field, in reference to some shoe impressions.
Yes. That was quite a bit later.
It was a while, yeah, after she got there. She went and kind of did what she needed to do, and then I was told to go to the hospital to meet with a couple subjects and take some photos to forward to her.
When you say she did what she had to do,
Correct.
that's obviously taking pictures and analyzing a scene for forensics. Was she done by the time you went to obtain these pictures?
No, she wouldn't have been.
And that knife that was on the floor, do you recall what it looked like?
I don't. It was a knife, but I don't remember details of it.
Just a simple knife, kitchen knife?
I believe it was a kitchen knife.
Potentially maybe even a meat carving knife.
I don't know much about knives, to be honest, kitchen knives.
But it did appear to be a regular kitchen knife.
Correct.
And the spray can on the floor, do you remember what location that was in? Whereabouts it might have been?
It was somewhere in the kitchen. Like I said, it was an open concept. From what I recall, it was in the kitchen close to where the living room area would be.
So in the potential center median of a walkway, maybe?
I don't remember that part.
Give me one moment. You obviously were directed to go to Blessing Hospital and take shoe prints. If you give me one moment, apologize. How many persons' shoe prints did you take?
It was several. It might have been 2, 3, 4. It was more than one, I do know that. And I just took photos of them. I didn't.
And what did you proceed to do with the photos?
I forwarded them to my supervisor, or a supervisor. I believe I sent them to Sergeant Jake McMahon.
And if you recall, were there any Nikes in them shoes?
I don't recall.
As I stated earlier, there was a 911 call made. You're obviously aware of that, or else you would not have responded to the scene, correct?
Correct.
And are you aware that CL denied services?
Objection, Your Honor. Assumes facts not in evidence and call for hearsay.
I'll overrule. You may answer the question.
Are you aware that CL denied services in such call?
I'm not sure what your question.
Are you aware that CL denied ambulatory services when someone made the phone call?
Oh, I'm not aware.
And I want to go back a little bit in reference to CL. She was sitting on the floor. How did she appear other than frantic? Physically, how did she appear?
She was sitting kind of odd with her legs to the side. I do remember that. And I mean, appeared she'd been crying. And just didn't seem real happy. I mean,
Yeah.
I'd never met her before, but she seemed distraught, in my opinion.
And you stated in your report, I apologize, I'm going to go back one more time. In reference to the cabinet, you stated that there was a kitchen cabinet that had been gone through. Could you describe that?
I don't recall.
It wasn't an open door or a drawer, maybe?
Whatever's in my report, I don't recall the exact details.
While you were there, while CL was still on the floor, or after being picked up, helped up to the couch, did you observe any blood?
Are you asking on her or in the area or?
On her or
Okay.
in the area, anywhere?
I do remember what appeared to be a reddish smears. There was a green fabric chair, which would have been in between the kitchen area into the living room. So it would have been slightly into the living room area. And there were some reddish smears kind of below it, kind of in front of it below.
I apologize for trying to go in depth. Your report is very minimal. It's
Objection, Your Honor.
Grounds.
Argumentative, calling the report minimal.
All right, so if we could ask the witness questions, Mr. Yohn.
yes, sir. Did it appear she was bleeding a lot?
I don't know if she was bleeding. I just said I saw red smears. I'm not sure if it was blood or not.
It probably wasn't enough to certify that it was blood, correct?
I don't know.
And you talk about the chair, the green plaid chair. Was there any blood on that chair?
I don't know if there was blood, but there was like a discoloration on it.
Your Honor, if I could, I'd like to present a couple exhibits of said chair. If possible.
Are you needing the bailiff to take those to
Yes,
the
please.
witness? Okay.
These would be a close-up of the chair and one of the-
Judge, can we get an exhibit number?
Do you have these labeled as defendant's exhibits, Mr. Yohn? On the,
exhibit number 74 and they're under image. Image 2341 and 2340.
all right, have you marked on the documents handed to the witness defendant's exhibit?
No,
74?
Your Honor, I did not have time. However, I do have them marked here in and digital. And I have provided the images with state's attorneys also.
We can have the bailiff return the exhibits to Mr. Yohn so he can mark them as trial exhibits, defendant exhibit, and then if you would try your best to number them sequentially so we can keep track of what's been admitted and what's not and what exhibits you're referring to at the trial. That would assist the jurors when they review and deliberate, as well as any appellate court who would have to reference those exhibits in the future. Mr. Bailiff, you might assist us by providing him with defendant exhibit stickers. If you'd like to use the stickers, just place those on the document that you're going to be handing to the witness. And there's a blank if you want to put whichever number you want to reference those by.
Your Honor, there would be exhibit number 1 and number 2, images 2345 and 2339.
All right. So if the bailiff could return the now marked exhibits to the witness. Mr. Yohn, if you would continue with your questions.
Do you remember that chair?
Yes,
And is that the green plaid chair you were speaking of?
it appears to be. These are black and white, but I believe it's the same pattern.
And, Your Honor, may I admit these into evidence?
Any objection?
No, Your Honor.
All right, so defendants number 1 and number 2 are admitted with no objection.
Your Honor, here is 2339. And that would be one of the exhibits you hold in your hand, correct?
Correct.
And that would be the other one, 2345.
Correct.
And does there appear to be any blood there?
I don't know if it would be blood, but it appears to be a discoloration.
And, you stated that officers helped her to the couch upon getting off the floor, correct?
Somebody did, yes.
And you stated that she was bleeding also, or it appeared that she was bleeding, correct?
I don't know if she was bleeding or not.
Your Honor, if I may, I'd like to present exhibits 3 and 4.
All right, the bailiff would take exhibits 3 and 4 in defense to the witness. Thank you.
And are then is that the couch that you remember?
Yeah, I believe that was on a far wall, like an opposite wall from the chair.
Approximately 6 to 8 feet, as you stated, away from the chair.
I'm gonna guess that, yes.
And there doesn't appear to be any blood on that couch, is there?
I can't tell. There's a dark colored, looks like a blanket there, so I don't know what's under the blanket, but
Your Honor, first I have a couple questions. In reference to her seated on that couch, you said you'd obviously been there for a while, correct? you'd been on the scene for a while, you stayed there for quite some time.
I was there for some time.
So you were in and out, and after she was helped up off the floor to the couch, you probably observed her on the couch at times.
At some point.
And did she appear to be relaxed and seated back, or was she
I don't recall that.
tense, straight?
I don't recall.
You don't recall? Do you recall what end of the couch she may have been sitting at from memory or even from your pictures?
I really don't recall.
Your Honor, may I place the exhibits into evidence?
Any objection
No, Your Honor.
to defendant's exhibits number 3 and 4 are admitted without objection?
And that would be the couch there, correct?
Yes, that is the same one as the photos.
Excuse
It's the same one as the photos.
me. And that one would also be.
Yes, it is.
And there's no coloration that you can determine there, correct? I apologize, this screen's a bit different than normal, but you obviously
I don't see anything right there, no.
To clarify that, you were there long enough that she left for the hospital and you were still around the scene, obviously walking through or doing what y'all had to secure the scene. After she raised up off that couch, did you see any discoloration or blood or anything?
I don't recall.
But if it was red, you would have probably noticed it, correct?
I might have.
Thank you. I'd like to speak on the home overall. You observed the home, so you could tell that there was obviously an abundance of items there, correct?
It was a large house.
And some, maybe even a lot being breakables, true?
I don't recall.
Were there a lot of glass, figurines, ceramic potentially?
I don't recall.
Based on your observing of such scene, it did not appear to be dirty as you stated earlier, true? It did not appear to be dirty?
There were sections that were, not to the normal, but the overall house seemed to be pretty clean.
The overall house seemed to be pretty clean. What sections you would probably say the kitchen and the bedroom appeared not to be normal?
I would say the kitchen with the knife and the carpet cleaner lying on the ground did not appear normal. And in the basement with some of the drawers open did not appear to be normal.
If you would give me just one moment, please. I don't have, the home appeared to be as if it was lived in. True.
Correct.
And you did state there were several on scene, including family. Taking into account you being first on scene, being there until approximately 9:30 p.m. or even later, you were of knowledge of people being in scene in their interaction, true? You're of knowledge of their interaction with the scene?
Of whose?
Deputies, the daughters.
I mean, I don't know what everybody was doing at all times, if that's what you're asking.
What was anybody doing?
I can count for myself. I know there was other people on scene.
And I'm gonna read off a list of persons, and you acknowledge if these were in fact there. Heidi Young would be a daughter.
I believe
You
so.
may not know her by name, but she was there.
I believe she was.
And Ilsa Terrell,
I believe she
another
was.
daughter. Lomeyer,
Yes. Sergeant Lomeyer was.
Sergeant Lomeyer. Sheriff Wagner, who was sheriff at that time.
Correct.
Chief Deputy Goodwin, or was it Smith?
I'm not sure about them.
Yourself,
Correct.
Deputy Sergeant McMahon,
Yes.
husband Schmidt,
Who?
husband Tim Schmidt,
Timothy Schmidt, yes.
Deputy Shoney,
Yes.
Kelsey Miller.
Investigator Miller. Yeah, she was there at one point.
Yes, I apologize. And is it a possibility that Deputy Shackleton was there?
I don't believe so.
Thank you. Deputy Bowden, you secured the scene, true? You secured the scene.
I didn't, just myself. I know Sergeant Lomeyer was there and then other people came later.
I want to ask you once more, you're aware of the claims CL made, such as home invasion, hijacking, kidnapping, among others, correct?
Correct.
And sexually assaulted a number of times, throwing down stairs. Would I be correct in assuming throwing down stairs?
I didn't talk to her myself very much. I know Sergeant Lomeyer did, and that's why in my report I know I had to refer to his.
Though you don't know, I would like to ask, did she appear, CL was a 77-year-old woman, did she appear to be throwing down stairs?
I don't know.
Deputy, these are some very serious claims. They're extremely serious. You yourself, did you urge CL to go to the hospital?
Did I urge her? No, when we get on scene, we're concerned obviously about her safety with the allegations. And also we're trying to get information about a suspect. Because obviously if there's suspects out, we're concerned about the safety of the public in general.
I have just a few more questions, Deputy Bowden. In Adams County, what is the standard procedure in securing a crime scene such as this?
I know we get there and I generally do whatever my supervisor tells me to.
Do you all tape the scene off? Do you all block the scene out from other intruders or persons entering?
I know I do whatever my sergeant asks me to, whatever their protocol is.
And that night, what did your sergeant ask you to do?
We were just there by ourselves initially, so we went inside and obviously spoke to her briefly and talked to Timothy Schmidt, the caller.
And your sergeant was?
Sergeant Joe Lomeyer.
Deputy, it interests me that approximately 10 people were in this scene, this very serious and heinous scene.
Objection, Your Honor. Is there a question?
I'm asking the question. Is that proper?
I'm not sure. Like I said, I follow what my sergeant tells me to do.
And ISP, Brandyfield ISP, she arrived around 9 p.m.
I'm not sure.
You're not sure? Where was the proper procedure at in this matter?
Objection, Your Honor. Argumentative.
Sustain the objection. She's already testified she's not aware of what that would be, Mr. Yohn?
That's all I have, Your Honor.
All right, any cross?
No, Your Honor.
All right, you may step down, thank you.
I'd ask that she be released from her subpoena at this point, Your Honor.
Mr. Yohn, any reason why this witness could not be released from her witness subpoena?
No, sir.
All right, so you're released from your subpoena and are free to go.
Thank you.
State have the next, I'm sorry, defense have the next witness ready?
Your Honor, I'd ask that, this one may take quite a while.
We've still got quite a while left in the day, Mr. Yohn. Do you
Yeah.
have one ready?
Could I use the restroom, please? It's approximately 2:30.
We'll go, yeah, and we didn't get started until not too long ago. In fact, it was precisely at 1:37. So we'll take a 10-minute recess. The bailiff would accompany the jury to the jury assembly room. All right, Mr. Yohn has passed up a subpoena that is People of the State of Illinois versus Bradley S. Yohn, 21 CF 715. Reads, People of the State of Illinois to the Sheriff of Adams County, greetings to Sheriff Rich Wagner, Adams County, Illinois. We command you, each of you personally, to be and appear before the said court in courtroom number blank at the courthouse in Quincy forthwith on the blank day of blank AD 2000 blank at the hour of blank .m to testify and the truth to speak in relation to a certain matter in controversy now pending and undetermined in said circuit court between the people of the state of Illinois, plaintiff and Bradley Scott Yohn, defendant blank at the instance of said blank, laying aside all pretense and excuses whatsoever under penalty of what the law directs, issued by Lori R. Gershwandner, clerk of the Circuit Court of Adams County, this 10th day of July 2023, and indicates that there was service on Rich Wagner on July 11th of 2023 by Tony, looks like Groughton Sheriff, and by Caleb, I can't read the last name, but number 39 deputy. So, Mr. Yohn, how was Sheriff or retired Sheriff Rich Wagner to know what day and time he was to appear to testify pursuant to this subpoena, given there's no date and time on it?
Obviously, you wouldn't, Your Honor. We'll move on to the next,
All right?
although I really need.
Who would your next witness be?
Could I have the officer, investigator, deputy
He's the bailiff today.
Summers?
Has returned the subpoena to the defendant. Who's your next witness?
Deputy Summers, Jared Summers.
All right, is Deputy Jared Summers present?
He is, Your Honor.
All right, so let's recall the jurors. Thank you. For the record, the jurors have returned to the jury box, and Mr. Yohn was calling his next witness on behalf of the defense, Jared Summer. Could I have Jared Summers? You come forward to the deputy circuit clerk and raise your right hand. She'll swear you in.
You do solemnly swear that the testimony you may give in the cause now pending before this court shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God.
Yes.
Have some over here to my right in the witness stand, please. Mr. Yohn, when you're ready with your questions.
Mr. Summers, can you state your name and badge number?
Jared Summers, Sam 31.
And you're in an occupation with Adams County Sheriff's Department, correct?
Yes.
And what do you do?
I'm assigned to the West Central Illinois Drug Task Force and also the U.S. Marshals Fugitive Task Force.
And You were working on the night of November 9th of 2021, correct?
Yes.
And can you relate to us a bit of the events that occurred that night?
I got a call from Sergeant McMahon. He told me that we had an incident, and I arrived to the scene.
And what scene was that?
Down on North Bottom Road to the scene that we're here for.
And can you explain briefly what that scene was in reference to?
Sergeant McMahon told me it was in reference to a home invasion and to get there. So I was off duty at the time, so I responded as fast as I could.
And arriving there, do you remember approximately what time you arrived?
I believe it was a little after 7 p.m.
And upon arriving there, could you go in depth on what you proceeded to do after arriving?
Sergeant McMahon advised me that a whitish or silver Toyota was stolen from the residence, and he asked me to go look for surveillance cameras and to see if we saw where the Toyota went.
And you obviously talked to Sergeant McMahon there at the scene outside your vehicle, correct?
Yes.
And where was that at in reference to the scene?
I don't remember, in the driveway somewhere.
And was there any other officers there at that time?
Yes.
Could you recollect who?
I remember Investigator Shoney, Investigator Miller, Sergeant McMahon, Sergeant Lohmeyer, and Deputy Bowden.
And you state Deputy Miller was there?
Investigator Miller, yes.
Investigator Miller. You didn't see any other persons, citizens of the community?
There was towards the garage. I saw some other people, don't know who they were. I wasn't up close to the house.
Have you ever had any happenstances or been around the husband, Mr. Timothy Schmidt?
No,
You do not know him.
no,
And have you ever met the victim or declarant, in this case, CL?
no,
And you did not see her that night either?
no.
And, so you didn't enter the scene?
Nope, I was just basically at the driveway for 5 minutes, if that.
And then you proceeded to canvass the area for possible camera sightings of defendant or the stolen vehicle, correct?
Yes.
Could you relate to us, after canvassing the local area, what you did after that?
Didn't find any surveillance cameras. I believe I went back to the scene very briefly. Sergeant McMahon advised me possible suspects of the defendant and Karen Blackledge, so I went back to the sheriff's office and started digging into them.
You, after starting to dig into possible suspects, as you state, can you further proceed into what you did after that?
Looked in our database and figured out basically ties of where they frequent, if they have ties from Quincy, just anywhere like that, and I came that they had ties in Springfield.
And further on, if you would.
That's all I did.
And that concluded your night.
At that point, no.
Anything else in reference to the case here at hand?
Later on, when the investigators got back to the sheriff's office, we wrote a probable cause report and then got a hold of Mr. Jones and advised him of the situation and then met him the next morning.
You didn't go in search of, or were you given any other information during that time in reference to the suspects?
Yes, I did. When I was doing the searching on our database, I realized that Karen Blackledge was a possible suspect in a vehicle theft earlier that day.
And you proceeded to do what after that?
I got a hold of the Quincy Police Department officer that handled that. He told me about it, and I watched surveillance cameras of the incident.
And in them surveillance cameras, can you relay what you saw?
I saw a black female, which I knew to be Karen Blackledge. She went up to, it was at Instant Replay. She went up to Instant Replay's front door and then walked to the truck, got in the truck, and drove away.
And Karen Blackledge was the only one you saw?
Yes.
How much of that camera footage did you review?
I don't know.
Enough to tell that it was only her, correct?
Yes.
And you were obviously given this camera footage later on after checking the database for information. Were you relayed approximately when that vehicle, I believe it was a GMC, a blue, turquoise blue GMC, was stolen from Instant Replay?
It was in the morning, I believe, between 10 to noon.
Did you get a call in about suspects being cited?
Yes.
And where were they cited?
The Toyota was cited at Hannibal gas station. Hannibal Police Department tried to stop that vehicle, and that vehicle fled from them. And then later on, I don't remember what road, but Illinois State Police also observed the vehicle, and the vehicle fled from them also after trying to conduct a traffic stop.
And upon trying to conduct that traffic stop in Illinois, do you remember approximately what time these occurrences were?
No,
Was it later in the night, or
I was still working, so I don't know when it was.
what time did you quit work that night?
I do not know.
Would it have been after 8 p.m.?
Yes.
So that's approximately 2.5, maybe even 3 hours after the occurrence.
I guess I got on scene a little after 7, so that's what I remember.
And do you have any knowledge as to when this alleged crime at 4300 Bottom Road happened?
I'm not for sure.
And were you ever able to, excuse me, I apologize. You did state that vehicle theft was from earlier in the day, true?
From that day, yes.
And based on your review of that video, can you tell us what the description of that black female was, what she may have been wearing?
I don't remember the description. Remember it was a black female. When I looked at the surveillance, I knew it was Karen Blackledge.
You could reference to the color maybe of the clothing, or?
I haven't seen the video in close to 2 years, so no, I don't know.
And how did she appear to be in that video? You worked obviously in drug task force, and you've known Karen for quite some time. How did she appear to be in that video?
I don't remember. I just remember her walking towards the door, and then walking back to the vehicle and leaving in it.
You state that you didn't see the defendant myself in that video. Would it be possible that he wasn't even present?
I don't know.
And Mr. Summers, onto the Phillips 66 video, were you able to see that?
I don't remember if I looked at it or not.
Have you since been given any other information on this alleged criminal act?
What do you mean?
Any details as to what happened? I understand you work in law enforcement. Is there a possibility you've talked to others concerning this act and could shed some light on it?
I'm going to object at this point, Your Honor. If he's asking for what somebody else has told him about this act, that would be hearsay.
Sustained, you can rephrase the question.
The sightings of defendants, I'm going to change the line of questioning completely. The sightings of defendants in the car, the white Toyota Avalon, they were hours later, you stated after 8 o'clock, correct?
That would be my guess, yes.
Do you know approximately how long it takes to get from Quincy, Illinois to Hannibal?
I would say 30 minutes, 35 minutes.
So if this alleged crime happened at 5:28, which you're not sure, I've just given you knowledge of, and suspects departed around 6 p.m., that would leave enough time for one to change clothes, maybe take a shower, make it to Hannibal. Maybe make it to Hannibal.
Objection leading.
Sustained.
2 hours would be enough to make it to Hannibal, correct?
Yes.
David Summers, I'd like to talk about the scene of the arrest.
I'm going to object, Your Honor. The witness said he was never at the scene of the arrest. Oh, I'm sorry. I apologize. Scene of the arrest. I withdraw my objection.
Your Deputy Summers, Investigator Summers. As I stated, I'd like to talk about the scene of the arrest. You and other officers were notified that the defendant, myself, and alleged co-defendant were arrested in Springfield, Illinois, correct?
Correct.
And you traveled to Springfield, Illinois, true?
Yes.
You also traveled with other officers.
Yes.
Could you state who you traveled with?
I rode with Sergeant McMahon and Investigator Yohn and Investigator Miller rode with each other.
And do you recall approximately what time you left for Springfield?
Shortly after the defendant was taken into custody is when we left.
And this was the following day, correct?
Yes.
On the 10th of November.
Yes.
And officers of the U.S. Marshal Service gathered info, which you're also part of, true?
Yes.
And they gathered info on the defendant and found that he and Blackledge were potentially at 906 East Cornell, true?
I'm not sure the exact address, but I believe so.
And that was, do you recall who provided that information?
We knew the defendant was at Jamal's store the day prior. TFO Von Barron, who works with the U.S. Marshals, spoke to the defendant's ex-girlfriend. She stated if he was in Springfield, he would be at Randy Young's residence, which is approximately 0.7 miles from Jamal's.
So you're familiar with the area then?
Yes.
And upon arriving to Springfield, what did you proceed to do?
I went to the scene on where the defendant was apprehended.
And upon arriving to that scene, obviously the defendant was already in custody at the local police station, correct?
Correct.
And at that scene, what did you observe first entering the scene?
Well, first entering was an unrelated incident to this case that we believe, but I'm not for sure. And then later, I spoke to a detective with Springfield Police Department, and she kind of showed me the area of where the defendant was apprehended.
And could you repeat that again about the unrelated incident you stated?
There was a vehicle there that there was a dead body in the alley where the defendant was apprehended, and that's what it is.
And that was approximately a property and a half over in a public alleyway, correct?
Yeah.
And you stated that it's unrelated to the defendant myself.
I'm not for sure, but I that's from my understanding, yes.
Very big coincidence, true.
Yeah.
One wouldn't expect to be looking for someone in these matters and come across a body in close proximity like that, would they?
Well, what's the question?
If you were looking for a suspect such as myself for these criminal acts, you wouldn't expect a coincidence such as that being that close to the scene of arrest.
I mean, doing this job since 2012, I think anything's possible.
Anything's possible, but it's a very big coincidence, Drew.
Anything's possible, yes.
You were shown around the scene by Springfield Police, correct?
Yes.
And what did he show you outside of the coincidence? What did he show you in reference to the scene?
Next to an RV, he just kind of showed me around. I do remember on a chair that there was a purse that the defendant was wearing during he was apprehended.
And can you speak on any procedure you took while there at that time, or did you just observe by eyesight?
I observed. I was more of just listening to Sergeant McMahon and what he wanted me to do at that time.
And in reference to that purse on the chair, were you able to, at that time, identify anything in that purse?
At that time, no.
In your report, you state that would give me one moment. You state that Sergeant Henson showed us around the scene. And while Sergeant Henson was showing us the scene, we observed in plain view a chair which was outside the purse Yohn was wearing. Correct?
Yeah.
And then you went and applied for a search warrant?
Investigator Shoney did.
You didn't identify or see anything on that chair other than the purse, Drew?
I don't remember if it was at that time, but I do remember what was in the purse. I'm not sure if I remember it was after we came back to the place, to the residence, or at that moment. But
And what was in the purse?
in the purse, there was U.S. currency, jewelry, a voter's ID card with Christina Lohman's name on it, and I believe the Toyota keys, and then also checks from ABS to Christina Lohman.
And that concluded the items in the purse.
I believe so, yes.
Deputy Summers, I want to jump over to processing a scene quickly. When you process a scene, you take pictures, correct?
Yes.
And how do you do that procedure? Do you place hands on items before you take the pictures, or do you take the pictures first?
So we take overall pictures of the whole scene, everything from top to bottom. We take a whole scene picture, and then after those pictures are taken, then we start handling that evidence.
And you stated you saw the purse with voters' registration cards, cash, jewelry, checks. And it was very obviously in plain view, just as this computer is here today, correct?
I don't remember, but
Seated right on the chair.
from my remembrance, it was on the chair.
And then You proceeded to, I believe, the police station, and Officer Shoney applied for a search warrant.
Yes.
And then, after that, what did you all do?
Sergeant McMahon, Investigator Shoney, and myself went back to the scene and executed the search warrant.
Deputy Summers, are you aware of a hijacking, or what could be considered a hijacking, that I believe may have taken place on October 19th, 20th, sometime around there, outside of town?
No.
I'm having a hard time. I'd like to inquire as to when you went back to the scene and did the search.
After the search warrant was signed from a Sangamon County judge, we went back to the scene.
And you proceeded to search, and did you search the purse?
I don't remember.
Here in your report, it states verbatim, during the search warrant outside the RV's doors, we observed the purse that was on Yohn. Inside the purse, there was a large amount of U.S. currency, numerous pieces of jewelry, checks from ABS that had Tina Lohman's name written on it, keys to the stolen Toyota, and Adams County voters registration card with Christine Lohman's name on it. And then you go on. Also, in a suitcase, we found a radar detector and court documents with Yohn's name on them. This is page 7 of 9 of your supplemental report. It is 0366 defense copy. Would you know who placed a pill bottle next to that purse, directly next to that purse?
No.
That chair?
No.
But it wasn't there in the beginning, was it?
I do not remember.
And would you relate to us what you did after this? And I would ask that you please go into detail, timing, actions taken, and the such.
Judge, objection calls for a narrative compound question.
Would you relate
Sustain
to
the
us?
objection.
Would you relate to us what you did after that point?
Objection calls for a narrative.
What did you
Sustain the
proceed?
objection for the same grounds.
What did you do after?
After we did executed the search warrant,
After you initially started the search warrant?
Objection still calls for a narrative, Your Honor. We need something more specific for this witness to answer the question.
Can you go into detail the procedure of the search?
we searched the outside and inside the RV and took evidence.
And do you recall what evidence you took?
The items on the chair, inside the RV. I believe we found some more U.S. currency, a gold watch, a purse, and I believe an ID, but I don't remember what ID that was.
And Deputy Summers, which of you took the pictures?
I know I didn't. I don't know who did.
Do you recall a Burlington receipt?
Like,
A Burlington department store receipt?
no.
And items recovered from Yohn and Blackledge. That wouldn't be stuff you found at the scene, would it? That would be things you found on a person, correct?
The items,
Items recovered from Yohn and Blackledge?
I mean, they were at the scene of where the defendant was apprehended.
But they would be different than what's recovered on a person.
I don't understand your question.
Items recovered from a defendant. If a defendant's found at a scene, and then he is taken to a police station, and you later come up to search the scene, the items found on the person at the police station would be different than the items found at the scene, correct?
Well, the items at the scene would stay at the scene, and the items on the, the items on a defendant would, I don't know what they did with them.
They went to the police department. Do you recall what kind of cell phone you have as far as your department cell phone?
It's an iPhone.
And do you remember the brand the model?
At that time, I have a new one now. I don't remember what brand we had then.
And did you observe a rosary on scene?
Not that I remember.
That's all I have, Your Honor.
All right, any cross?
No, Your Honor. We'd ask that he be released from the people's subpoena.
You intent to recall this witness, Mr. Yohn?
Potentially, Your Honor.
We'd ask that he be released from our subpoena at least, Your Honor.
All right, we're releasing from the people's subpoena at this time. Any further witness, Mr. Yohn?
Your Honor, I do, however, I'm not ready for them yet. I need to inquire with Sheriff Wagner and Massachusetts. Also, I need to take up an issue of very high relevance concerning this case. It would have to be outside the jury. It's very important, Your Honor. It's in reference to evidence, items, and pictures.
Well, Mr. Yohn, if we're going to take it up outside the hearing of the jury, let's wait and we'll do so outside the hearing of the jury. They are still here. And so we will adjourn for the day. And I need to admonish the jury, as you have heard repeatedly before, but I need to do it every time just to remind you. We will now be in recess for the evening. You may go about your normal affairs, but you must not discuss this case with anyone, including family members, friends, or your fellow jurors. As I told you at the beginning of this case, your job as jurors is extremely important. Your decision on your verdict is to be based only upon the evidence that you see and hear in this courtroom and the instructions of law that I will give you. Therefore, to remain fair and impartial, you must refrain from doing the following things until you are discharged from service on this case. You must not converse with anyone on any subject connected with this case. You must not read or listen to anything outside of the court proceedings, including any outside comments or news accounts of this case. You must not discuss among yourselves any subject connected with the trial or form any opinion on the cause until you start your deliberation on your verdict. You must not view or go to the place where the offense was allegedly committed. If you hear or observe anything about this case outside this courtroom, whether inadvertently or otherwise, you must immediately inform me at the beginning of our next session. Do not discuss any of these things with your fellow jurors at any time. You are to report tomorrow in time to start again promptly at 9 a.m. to continue your jury service in this case. So I thank you for your patience and time today, and we'll see you back tomorrow at 9 a.m.
Ladies and gentlemen, please rise.
Mr. John, you had an issue to raise?
Your Honor, last night I noticed some very disturbing things. And these are in reference to sexual assault pictures. Judge, I believe there needs to be something done about these sexual assault pictures. The state's attorney stated that I've seen them several times. Your Honor, I've seen different pictures at least 2 different times. And the ones that were presented yesterday were not of Christine Lohman. I don't care who testified of them. There were a couple that I am for sure, without a doubt, that were not Christine Lohman.
Which pictures, Mr. Yohn? Let's identify them for the record.
Your Honor, they are vaginal pictures.
Do you have the people's exhibits numbers that we can reference for the record so we
No,
have
Your
a clear
Honor.
record?
Judge, we can help with that.
All right, we can help out speed things along, please do so.
Judge, the photos in question are, I believe, People's 31 and People's 32.
Your Honor, there was, the first time I observed these, there were several more than this. And they were completely different than what we viewed yesterday. I would suggest potentially the courts, with all attorneys involved, do an in-camera session or something to determine this. Because I have pictures, not of the genital area from the sex assault exam, but I have pictures here that are completely different than what one has showed on this screen here. There's no reason they should be completely different, Your Honor. I think irrelevant, something that needs to be addressed and something needs to be done about it. Your Honor, I also have other pictures, and though they may be disturbing, I have other pictures from a later time that also show that these aren't from the same person. There's specific issues with that area that prove this. And I'm not going to state them out loud because I don't want to offend anybody here today. But
Mr. Jones, care to respond to the allegation?
Thank you, Your Honor. I'm dumbfounded. I'll say that. I'll start with that. One, Jacqueline Oglesby testified in open court that the photographs were photographs that she took, specifically People's 31 and 32 were photographs of the victim. Two, the defendant had every opportunity to cross-examine her on that, and he did not do that. They were admitted into evidence, and again, Jacqueline Oglesby, under oath, said they were of the victim in this case. Three, the defendant has seen those photos numerous times. We did not provide him copies of them because of the sensitive nature. We've addressed that with the court and with this defendant multiple times. He's asked to see them multiple times, and each time Ms. Keck and I have gone down to the jail or gone over to the jail and shown him those photos and given him ample time to look at those photos. Are there more photos of her genitalia? Absolutely. We chose to use 2 because of the graphic nature of them. So he's right, there are more. We didn't use any more than the 2 that we used because of the graphic nature of them. That was our choice as trial strategy. That doesn't mean that they aren't of her, especially when the court has found the appropriate foundation has been laid and a witness testified as to that foundation. I don't know what the defendant is trying to do here now, Your Honor, but frankly, it's not the right time, it's not the right place, and I'll stop there.
All right, so Mr. Yohn, having heard the arguments of yourself and the state, the time to have objected to anything about People's Exhibits number 31 and number 32 was when the witness Oglesby was testifying, and she did testify to the foundation, identified those photographs of those as the photographs she took of CL, of the injuries resulting from the sexual assault, as well as the photographs were identified by Dr. Kagumba as the photographs she had reviewed of the initial injuries and then basically that were healing of that sexual assault. And so, quite frankly, the water's run under the bridge already, Mr. Yohn, and so there's nothing I can do about that. They're admitted without your objection and will remain admitted without your objection.
I have not been disclosed in photos, as you say.
And again, Mr. Yohn, the time to have objected even on that grounds passed when those witnesses were here to testify, and you did not object to those being admitted. It's too late.
Because I did not know, Your Honor, I've not been given.
You were in the courtroom, sir.
I have not seen I've not seen.
All right, I ruled. You were in the courtroom during the testimony and with the exhibits. They're admitted.
Yep.
Any other issue, Mr. Yohn?
Interviewing witnesses, Your Honor.
It's the same answer I had for you yesterday, sir.
And we spoke on that today and determined that we would proceed further into that.
What were we proceeding further into?
Well, I'd indicated, Your Honor, that this morning I'd indicated that I was willing to go speak with Ms. Blockledge again and to inquire whether or not she would do that. Frankly, I'm not sure that I'm in the mood to do that, but I will still do that because I don't want this defendant to feel like he's being treated unfairly.
All right. So Mr. Jones will likely be accompanied by Ms. Keck as well as a law enforcement officer to visit with Ms. Blackledge to see if she's changed her mind from last evening and wishes to speak with you or not. And then they'll facilitate that if she does so desire.
We will, Your Honor.
Your Honor, people can say anything and people can be believed as long as there's a foundation, true?
And Mr. Jones and Ms. Keck are officers of this court, sir. And so they have a ethical obligation as officers of the court to be truthful with this court. And we had testimony this morning to back up the representations that were made.
Yes, sir.
That's about the best I can do, sir. I'm not going to go ask her because I'm not a witness in this case. I've got to be the judge.
Yes, sir.
Okay? Anything else, Mr. Yohn?
No, Your Honor.
Anything for the people?
Yes, Your Honor. As far as tomorrow, if the defendant is going to call witnesses, we would like to know who they are so that we can help facilitate them being in court so we don't deal with the same issue that we've dealt with today. I would also point out that two of the witnesses that the defendant indicated he was likely to call, and one that he wanted to recall, were Brian Curran and Kelsey Miller. Both those individuals are under our subpoena. They are not under a subpoena from the defendant. I want to be clear on that. They are only available tomorrow if the defendant wants to call them. Once tomorrow runs, they are not available next week. And again, they are only under the people's subpoena.
And that was Kelsey Miller, correct?
Kelsey Miller and Brian Curran.
I don't want to call Brian Kern. He has no
So-
issues.
If we can confirm that we can release Brian Curran from his subpoena, I'll do that, and then that just leaves Kelsey Miller.
Your Honor, we can release Brian Kern. Brian Kern has nothing to do with this case.
All right, so Brian Curran can be released from the state subpoena to be a witness in this case. And as far as Kelsey Miller, Mr. Yohn, are you going to want her available to testify?
Tomorrow afternoon, Judge.
We will have her here and available. The state will make an effort to make her here and available tomorrow.
We will do that, Your Honor. Then, finally, Your Honor, Heidi Young and Ilsa Terrell and Tim Schmidt, because the defendant also indicated he may want to recall those people. So if he wants them here, if he wants to give me a time, I will make sure that those individuals are available.
Mr. Yohn, do you wish to call Heidi Young as a witness?
Yes, that should be brief.
It's just yes or no, but what time? You want it first thing in the morning or afternoon?
Early afternoon.
And then Ilsa Terrell, do you want to call her as a witness?
We could move Heidi up a bit, or either or, vice versa. but I prefer to do Kelsey Miller last.
All right,
Tomorrow.
Timothy Schmidt, are you wishing to call him as a witness?
Potentially in the morning, Judge.
I will have Mr. Schmidt here in the morning. I will have Kelsey Miller here at 12:30, 1 o'clock. Does he want to give me a time for Heidi Young and Ilsa Terrell?
I would suggest Ms. Young and Terrell also be here in the morning. I'm not going to be taking these breaks waiting for witnesses to be available. I want them lined up and ready to go.
Yes, sir.
Next witness, next witness.
And if there are any other witnesses he wants tomorrow.
Mr. Yohn, are you wanting the state's assistance in gathering or trying to get other witnesses here?
I would think that them may take up most of the day.
Well, we're going to fill the day, sir, so any other witness?
Jake McMahon.
He doesn't have a subpoena for the defendant. So, what time?
We will have Officer or Sergeant McMahon here in the morning as well.
Any other witness, Mr. Young?
Now for tomorrow, Your Honor, no. I believe them should.
All right, and again, I expect to fill the day, so if we come up on a 1:30 again with no witnesses, I mean, you're going to either fill the time or we're going to be adjourned and taking up instructions to the jury. So make sure we've got enough people to fill the day, sir.
I guess we could throw Dr. Finster on this.
He's only under.
Dr. Finster has not been properly served with a subpoena, Your
No,
Honor.
he's our subpoena, but he's not available this week.
He's not available this
And
week.
he only has a subpoena from us.
Kevin Douglas.
Does he have a subpoena?
I'm not sure if Kevin Douglas has been subpoenaed by the defense.
He's got our subpoena. Let's see if we can get him here. I'll try. He's got our subpoena. But he
Has
doesn't.
Kevin Douglas been issued a subpoena, Mr. Young?
No, not on my behalf, no. I didn't think I'd have to since he's already been added to the list as subpoena.
We'll ask him.
Again,
I can try to have him here, but he's not under subpoena, so there's not much I can do, but I
He
will,
has a subpoena from us,
but I will attempt to have Officer Douglas here.
would be beneficial. Anyone else, Mr. Young?
That'd be it, Small Judge.
All right. Anything else for the people?
No, Your Honor.
We will be adjourned. It is now 3:30 in the afternoon. See you all back here shortly before 9 o'clock tomorrow morning.
Thank you, Your Honor.